the number one mistake I see streamers making.
I'd say it's a mistake to give up.
I think variety content is just so incredibly difficult to grow with on Twitch. It's so difficult.
I think it's okay to do content that's not going to work.
Ooh, can I be a bit like devil's advocate here?
But in saying that, they're going to get a very harsh lesson very quickly.
Yeah, you see the slow decline.
Over the last few years of running this channel, I have shared with you guys a lot of the mistakes I've made as a streamer and creator. And it's getting pretty embarrassing at this point to keep having to show everything I do wrong. So I figured, why not spread some of that embarrassment around by asking full-time Twitch streamers, Twitch partners, what their biggest mistakes are and what mistakes they see all the time. And don't worry, I'll share another mistake I've made just this week at the end as well for you. Let's get into it.
I'd say it's a mistake to give up. It's a mistake to think, well, I don't have anybody to talk to, so I'm going to give up. It is a different question depending on your size, because say you're having trouble keeping conversation flowing. That's incredibly important when you're a small streamer. But once you're a big streamer, you know, there are people who do speedruns and stuff and they don't say a word and they can get hundreds or thousands of viewers. So it differs depending on where you are. So communication, I think, is probably one of the biggest ones for smaller streamers. It's hard to figure out how to communicate to no one, or, you know, just to yourself or just to like one or two people. Keeping the conversation going is really hard. Biggest thing you can do is just keeping on talking. You'll probably find if you do keep doing that you will become better at being a streamer and being entertaining as well, because you've done the hardest version of it. You know, you've got, you know, your XQCs and your Ludwigs, and they have a chat of thousands of moderately funny people to bounce off of. But, you know, if you're on your own, you have to be funny on your own, which is way harder than anything they're doing. So, you know, it's a bit of a trial by fire, but the mistake would be giving up.
But what about those days where it is just so difficult to go live? Like you've been working all day at your 9 to 5, or you've been at school or college all day, and you just don't have the energy, you just don't feel like doing it. What do you do then? Do you just put on a fake smile, go live, and do your best?
You can't fake the energy that you need to bring to this entire thing, whether it be YouTube videos or streams. Sure, there are, like, you know, chill streamers out there. There are people that come to like those low energy streams. Most of them aren't that though. So you would really have to be like extra lucky on this platform that's already so highly involved, like around luck, to make that work. You need to bring the energy, but it needs to be genuine. You can't fake it, because as much as like people might come to this website to turn their brain off, as a human, you just know when somebody's full of shit, to put it lightly. Like, it's just so obvious if this isn't even like slightly genuine.
I absolutely agree with that. This is something that I have a real problem with on Twitch, is that I can kind of tell when streamers are being inauthentic, when they're not excited to be there, or when they just aren't really feeling it. And I think a lot of us can even subconsciously tell that. But I think it raises a really big question. If you're growing in like one type of content, say you only do Stardew Valley, then you get bored of it. Should you swap? How do you swap? Should you do variety? What do you do when you're starting out and you're struggling with that sort of thing?
Don't get me wrong, variety content is fantastic. It has a place, right? Variety content is fantastic. But when you're first starting out, variety content will be to your detriment, because if someone comes to you for a game and then the next week that you're playing another game, they're probably not going to stick around. Like, that's just cold, hard facts. And that sounds really awful to say, but it's good to build an audience surrounding something and then try and branch out after that. So I feel bad for saying that, because it's not necessarily like a mistake per se, because it's just what you want to do and it's what you're passionate about. And a lot of people get really burnt out on like doing 1 or 2 games over and over again. So I definitely feel that it's very hard to just stick to one game. But genuinely, to grow, it's very hard to do it playing multiple different games every different week.
I can agree with that. I think you should be really careful about branching out. But when it does come time to branch out, what do you do? Should you be really careful at the type of content you do so it doesn't fail? How do you tell what is good content for you to make so that you don't struggle or make a really bad piece of content?
I think it's okay to do content that's not going to work, because you find out it's not going to work. Like, I honestly believe that 90% of like what makes a successful streamer is what didn't go good for them. Like, where they failed is where they've succeeded down the track. Like, it's just like what worked, what didn't work. It's like so many things did not work.
That's actually a really good point. Yeah, we have failed. I fail all the time. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to make even this video. So I guess the follow-up is, how do you guys pick yourself back up, dust yourself off, and try and keep going after having a failure or making a mistake?
Probably most streamers are a little too hard on themselves. It's good to think about what you're doing so that you make the best content possible, but you don't want to think so hard that you've decided that you're useless, you know? If you calculate everything you do, then when the calculation doesn't actually pan out for you, then you think, well, it must be something wrong with me, you know? So I think they can overthink it a little bit and end up being overcritical of themselves.
Okay, so overthinking is a really bad idea. I am absolutely guilty of that. But can we go to the complete opposite end of the spectrum? What do you think is something that small streamers, new streamers, or streamers at all should be overthinking or spend way more time thinking about?
Spending money they don't need to spend. Like going into things underprepared, underplanned, spending money on things that really don't add any value to the stream. You know, going, oh, I just bought a new headset. Okay, but how does that add value to the stream? You know, maybe add some background lights, add, you know, maybe a new graphics card to make your stream look a bit better, a new camera, like stuff that actually adds value that the viewer will see.
I'm gonna steal a little bit of Ludwig's advice here, which might be a little bit taboo, but he once said that consistency will always trump creativity. And I think that is so important when it comes to streaming and content creating. Consistency is super important. Being able to get a good brand going for yourself, getting into a niche of some kind, and also networking with other creators and getting to know people within your niche, being able to work with them and collaboratively, you know, create things together, I think is really important. And so I hope that's definitely things that helped me along the way. So I hope it helps some small streamers out there too.
I want to get a little bit more personal with this now. What is a mistake that you've made? Not necessarily the biggest, just the one that maybe impacted you the most.
I would say the biggest mistake that I guess I ever pulled myself up on would have been, this is probably going to sound very strange coming from an Australian, but like I noticed that when I would be more of my unfiltered Aussie-ness, you know, like swearing all the time, just being as chaotic as I normally would be, it tends to push people away more. This could just be purely because I was in the Super Mario Odyssey directory. Can't really say for sure. It really became apparent to me that the people that like censored themselves even just a little bit, you know, so that they weren't maybe swearing as much or just like swearing really at all, tended to get way better interaction across the board. You had people that would come back a lot of the time. It was something that I noticed, and that when I implemented myself, I did see better results come from it. It was a very random introspective thing to notice and like actually see results from. But I guess that's just like the name of the game, right? You kind of just have to test things as you go, and like if they do well, then you're like, well, cool, we'll just roll with it then. Just keep going.
It's cliche, but it's just the not having fun thing. That ties into like the focusing too much on numbers, focusing on the wrong things, and they're just disengages. People get like, they're getting angry on stream, they're getting like visibly frustrated and just like annoyed, and it's like I don't think people want to watch that. Like I know I personally don't want to watch somebody get really like actual angry on stream, because that just makes me uncomfortable as a viewer, so I just click off. Because I certainly had that problem early on where I was getting visibly frustrated at streaming because I wasn't growing or whatever. I'd be like, why aren't people watching? And I'd be like, oh, because I'm acting like an immature 12-year-old. That's why that's why no one's watching. So I think that's a big mistake a lot of people make. It's like, you do have to kind of have like an on-screen presence a little bit and be like, okay, like put your best foot forward always. But like you got to be in the space.
And now, I guess it's my turn to wrap all this up and share with you a massive mistake that I made for the last 2.5 years, and I'm probably still going to make for the rest of my life. And I have to constantly catch myself when I make this. And I have to be really honest here, because my biggest mistake was not being honest. I'm not lying to you guys or anything like that. Don't worry, I know it sounds bad, but what it actually is that I know exactly what I have to do to grow. I know exactly where I should spend my time. I know the formats, the ideas, the things that worked. And I know how much time and energy I'm spending actually putting work in. I know that sometimes I don't start work until midday. And I know sometimes I put in a really lazy day when I'm supposed to be putting in a lot of time in. I know I could upload 4 videos every single month to this Stream Scheme channel. But just because I know everything that I should be doing and everything I could be doing and every step I'm supposed to take, well, it doesn't mean I actually do it. Because at the end of the day, I just sometimes don't have the work ethic that I should. And I lie to myself about my work ethic sometimes. When the reality is, I should be doing a hell of a lot more if I wanted to grow. And I think if a lot of streamers were a bit more honest with themselves about the amount of work they're putting in and whether or not they're putting in effective work, you know, not just going live 5-6 hours a day, but actually spending those 5-6 hours making something that will allow them to achieve their goals and their dreams, well, then they'd probably be growing a lot better. And I think I'd be growing a lot better if I was a little more honest with myself as well. But I think that's my biggest mistake. And I think on that topic of hours spent streaming versus where we should spend our time and everything we need to do, I really think it's important that everyone who watched this video should go check out this one right here. It's all about why streaming in 2023 is one of the worst ways to grow your stream and some massive changes that happened in the industry that are going to hurt every small creator. I'll see you guys next week.